Welcome to the Divine Worth podcast, where we are letting go of our self-doubt, anxiety, fear, and limiting beliefs so that we can step into the divine roles that God has for us. I am your host, life coach Karen Pappen, and together we are embracing our divine worth and potential. Well, welcome to the Divine Worth podcast. I'm excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Sonrisa Hasselbach. And she is a mom of 2 kids and a religious educator to many more. After experiencing a divorce and struggling to find confidence again, she became passionate about sharing the gospel through humor and short messages. Despite working her dream job at SeaWorld, her greatest love is helping teens and people find Christ-centered confidence in an image-driven world. Her greatest desire is to connect with people who may be losing hope to find strength, love, joy, and confidence through Jesus Christ and his gospel. Her dream is to travel the world, connecting with other people of faith and faiths, talking about Jesus Christ. You can find her sharing on Instagram at Once Upon a Sonrisa. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to have you here.
I was tearing up as you were reading that because I'm like, oh, did you hear somebody else say that? I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
One thing to write it, but then one thing to have someone read it and be like, yes, that's true. I want to do that.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. Just the focus that you have on confidence, but it's confidence through Christ and helping
Yes.
others to feel the love that he has for them.
Yes.
And so, what are some of the ways that you have seen that love in your own life?
Well, at the very beginning, we were talking about SeaWorld because I think one of the greatest ways that we can feel God's love for us is as we set goals and also go after things that we just love. And working at SeaWorld was one of those things I just wanted to do since I was little. And it was this dream I had and worked at it since I was in high school, got in college. I mean, I took a good 3 years just trying to get the job once I became eligible. And after getting the job, and that's a whole nother story in itself, but just getting the job as working as an apprentice trainer with orcas, it was like the epitome of this is it. I don't need anything else in my life. I mean, at that time in my life, as much as I knew, I had just been married for I think a couple years. So to me, that was the best moments of my life. This is it, achieving that dream with God. He was definitely a part of that. And it was always about working with the animals, with the orcas. And when I was working at SeaWorld, something kind of interesting happened. With anything, sometimes you get another glimpse, another side of what things are like. And I ended up seeing just another side of the profession, another side of the job. But as I was working, and I would be in the audience a few different parts of the show, and as everyone was leaving, I felt this new kind of pull to look for people in the audience who may have just been just hurting. You see a lot of people that come to some of these amusement parks and they either have cancer or they have some kind of debilitating illness and they're sitting in a certain section of the stadium. And so sometimes it would be easy to find them. But once I would see them, there was something just you need to go talk to them. And when I would go and talk to them after the show, and I just felt this pull, just help them create a memory, And the trainers kind of got annoyed with me, I know, because I'd say, hey, I'd tell my boss, there's someone else in the stadium. We really need to bring them back so we can show them some of the wells, up close. And they're like, Sonrisa, they're like, we can't keep doing this. I'm like, I know, but they really need it. They really need just this is what's going on. They're going through some really hard times. And so they would okay, bring them back, bring them back. So they would bring them back and they would have this little interaction with a well. And for them, it was me watching them was me experiencing getting the job all over again. It was the joy came back to see them just have this moment with their families and to have this moment. And I think that was the first glimpse of understanding what confidence meant, because when I first got the job, it was being confident that I got this job with the Lord. He helped me achieve this dream. I'm doing my dream job. But then it changed into, but that's not what this is about. It's the people. It's the people that are important. Yes, animals, learn everything you can about this. I'm so glad that you're there. But while you're there, there's people that I need you to find. There's people that I need you to help just bring joy and light into their life. And that's a huge memory that I have. That's kind of like when things started shifting for me, where I was like understanding that there was this new kind of confidence that didn't come from anything else but my Savior and from the joy that He can bring us. And some of that joy can be felt not necessarily through the doctrines of Christ, but it's just simply helping people. But that is a doctrine of Christ, is helping people. It's ministering to them in whatever space we're at. And at that time, I was at SeaWorld. So that's the beginning where I started to understand God's love and where confidence comes from.
I love how you were in tune to the people that needed it too. Like he was leading you to the specific people who, hey, they could use a little more joy in their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the things that have kept you from being able to see that confidence in yourself?
I think for everybody, we go through these like waves of, oh, I found what confidence means. And then we come through another trial. And then we're like, oh, wait, I don't know what confidence means. And I think that experience, I think at SeaWorld was kind of like a preparatory experience, because it was like a few years later that I actually went through a divorce and came back here to Utah. And all of a sudden I had to figure out what confidence was all over again, and finding meaning. And some of the meaning that I tried to find and find purpose was in through other different ways. And I found that wasn't fulfilling for me, even though they were like good things, but I just found like, that's not fulfilling. Like there's got to be more, like there's got to be more to this. Um, and I think I was definitely led to teaching seminary. Um, there was a lot of like pit stops along the way that brought me joy and helped me understand like what confidence is. But even today, I'm still learning things about confidence. Like when you go through a divorce, there's still just different things you've experienced. And my own personal experiences, I still have things I'm still working through, because all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm a defect. Like I experienced betrayal. I experienced other things that really affected me, like my heart and just my mind and just everything about me. And so it was like, I'm wrong. Like there's so many things about me like that are wrong. Why would anybody ever love me? And so you start to adopt these new thinking ways, and it was unhealthy for sure. And on the same time, I'm also trying to figure out how to like, I got to find a job. I'm a single mom now. All these different things are being thrown at you, and you realize that you're not keeping it all together. And now you've got to parent both kids alone and make decisions. And it's just really, it's challenging. I mean, even just recently, I talked about it on my social media the other day, like this idea of talking positively about ourselves. I'm literally in seminary class taking a B reel with a student, and I'm looking at the picture. I'm thinking, oh, this is so ugly. Like, and I kind of like purposely made the picture to be a little goofy, because that's who I am. I like to laugh. And maybe it's kind of a little cover up for my own insecurities. And as I'm looking at this photo, I'm like, oh gosh, that's so ugly. This girl in one of my classes, she looked at me and said, Sonrisa, or she said, Sister Hasselbach, don't say that to yourself. And she was so sincere. And I was like, kind of embarrassed a little bit by that, because she called me out, which I'm glad that she did. And I was like, you're right. We just got done talking about being a light. And how can we be a light if we're talking bad about ourselves? And then I did it like a natural reflex again. I'm like, okay, but it's a bad picture. And she's like, you're doing it again. She's like, you got to talk kind to yourself. And so this whole thing has helped me see that I have not been talking kind to myself, even when I look in the mirror or like pictures. And it's like a habit that I think started before that. I think it's just like typical, like as anybody else, but with a new added kind of just experience of what I experienced through divorce. It's like all of a sudden this whole new thing that now I'm just feeling more negative, I guess. And this was a habit I had picked up that was not good. And so I recently have just been like, when I look in the mirror, I'm like, hey, you are a beautiful soul. And at first you don't feel that. Like it is hard to feel those things. But I'm working on it, and I'm working on it through God, right? I'm trying to find confidence in doing this through Christ. And so that's where we're at right now. I can tell you how so many times where I've reached a point where I'm like, I figured out what confidence is. This is it. And then a new experience happens. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel very good about this. And one of my students actually came in today and put a quote up on my board. And it was so perfect because this is exactly what I've been feeling. And she wrote down, do you have any idea how much your soul is worth? Both God and the devil are fighting for it. And I attributed this like with confidence. If we are truly as divine and so good as God knows that we are, you better believe that the devil's going to fight for it. He knows if we even catch a glimpse of who we really are, then we will win and we will accomplish so much good. And God knows that too. And so he's going to find and help us find ways to find confidence through him in that process, in that journey. I think of this knight in shining armor, this woman on a horse with armor on, and she's going through some of these difficult, like paths, thorns, briars, just animals coming at her. And she sees in the distance this castle, this beautiful place that she wants to be. She knows she belongs there, but she's got to get through some kind of tough spots. And I think sometimes we lose sight. It's so easy to lose sight of the future ahead, of what our worth is. And how do we catch a glimpse of who we are? I think it's through the temple. We go to the temple and we catch a glimpse of who we are. We spend time with God and letting him prevail, and we catch a glimpse of what God sees in us. But you better believe Satan is riding on our coattails, just waiting for us to distract us or figure out some way that he can make us forget that journey that we're on, so that we'll completely just be sidetracked and be like, oh, I forgot who I am. I feel horrible about myself. I don't like myself. And then the negativity starts. And just like with life, a bad experience may happen. And then that just kind of propels us into a deeper like feeling of, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm not even going to try that. I'm not going to go to church because I don't feel like I belong. Like I'm just an outsider. I'm not even going to try to do this podcast or whatever because nobody knows, I'm not as good as this person. Like it is such a fight. Like we all have a fight in something. And I admire people it feels like it comes easy for them. And I've heard people say, it seems like you're so confident. I'm like, oh, if you only knew, if you only knew. Oh, but I think for sure that Christ has definitely been the best source through every trial of getting back of that vision of who's most important, which is not me, it's God, right? God is the most important person, his destination that he has for me. But then he reminds me of my worth. He reminds me who I am. And it's almost like he clears the brush so that I can see ahead and be like, oh yeah, there we go. That's the goal. That's where I need to be because this is who I am.
So in those times when you are in that downward spiral of negativity, what helps you to kind of pull yourself out of?
I'm not gonna say I'm perfect at it. I mean, I have moments where I get depressed. And for me, and you said what helps me. I think for me personally, I try to stay off social media. Like that's if I know that I'm just getting triggered with different things, I just know I need to like back off that for a little bit and get grounded, whether it's through family or just being really present with what's happening around me. It's okay. I feel like it's important to almost be sad for a little bit and just feel those emotions like I don't feel good. I do not feel confident right now, and then giving that to God because he can't take anything from us if we don't give anything to him. But finding ways to get close to him, it's the basic answers. But in this situation from this last week, just a simple phrase like, no, you're a beautiful soul. And really consciously being aware of that. I look in the mirror, I'm like, ooh, I guess a zit forming there, girl, or something like that. Like I'm talking about myself. And I'm like, oh, you don't want to go to school like that. But then I'm like, oh, wait, why am I saying this? So it's just being very conscious and aware and like, okay, what would God say to me? What's most important to him? And looking for those truths in the scriptures, like getting in the word, listening to those conference talks. It's just feeling like taking the negativity and putting something else in there. Like you can't have both. They both can't exist. So if you feel the emotions, okay, we've felt them, we've processed them. We know that they're real. And then we're like, okay, we're going to sweep those out for a second and we're going to add now something good. The two can't be in the same place at one time. Light always chases out darkness. And so light, the scriptures, going to the temple, scripture, like memorizing a verse, which I've been trying to do. And I feel like that has been super helpful, just trying to get the word in my head. Because when the word or even a song is in my head, it's really hard for negativity to stay in there.
One of the things that you said was, well, a couple things. The first is feel those emotions, like really allow yourself to feel it. And then one of the next things that you said following that was, and then give it to God. And sometimes that can be so hard to do, like actually to just hand over the emotions and the things that we're going through and let God take control. Why do you think it is that we struggle so much with doing that?
I think because we're the type of people that just want to figure stuff out. We just want to figure it out how to do it right then, right there. And usually it's like a dilemma or it's a problem that's like causing us to kind of like doubt ourselves. And it's like the situation often cannot be solved right there in that moment. I mean, even if it's like something to do with our bodies or like the way we look, some things are permanent. Some things are really hard to change. Some things like I have really curly hair right now, and it is so I can't change it right now. Like it's just curly. I've been born with curly hair, right? There's nothing I can do about that. And at some point that could get really discouraging, right? So anyways, like getting back, giving it to God, I think just personally it's because it's like we can't change it. There's things we can't change, or there's things we can't fix right away. And that can feel really overwhelming when it doesn't feel like there's a solution or that we won't get out of that. But I think just keep like I heard you say giving it to God. I'm just gonna give it to you, God. It's all gonna work out. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Don't lean onto your panic understanding or your misunderstanding of who you are. Like lean into God and he shall direct thy paths. I think it's pretty natural for all of us to just have a hard time giving it to God. It's so natural. It's such a hard thing to do. Oh, and it's easy to say it on one end, especially when you're on the back end of things. But I just had some like even new things that kind of happened today that I was feeling like totally, I can't control it. Like I'm going to do my best, but things are still the way they are. And it's super frustrating. And that can make you feel not confident because you're like, I must be doing something wrong then. But sometimes there's not a solution right now. And sometimes that's the hardest when you can't solve it right now. But part of being confident is trusting that God does know and has a solution and will take care of things if we continue to have faith, continue to trust in Him, continue to turn to Him. Because I personally have felt that the answers do come, angels do come, miracles do come, and to hang on to that, like that hope.
And it's that process that you mentioned earlier, where it's like, okay, feel that emotion and you're letting it go. You're letting go of those doubts, clearing your mind of those doubts, and then fill it with the faithful thoughts.
And I think for me, that's where humor comes in because humor is something and joy is something I'm like, I can create joy. I can create my own happiness. And that was something I had to learn to do before I was even divorced. And there was a lot of hard things. I have to create my own joy. Or else I'm gonna drown in this. And so even now it's like laughter and joy was my coping mechanism. And so I think if we can find things in the meantime to carry us through, I think it's so important to laugh and to find joy when we're not feeling our best. And I think, thank goodness, we have social media and dumb YouTube videos and dumb shorts and reels that can make us laugh for a second and forget about it for a second. Not entirely like that we want to be so absorbed in that we forget to do and take care of ourselves and our mental state. But I think it's good to find ways to find joy and laughter and be like, because to me, that's trusting in God. When you're just like, I don't have control over this, but I'm going to find something to laugh at. Like, to me, that's having faith and it's having hope in the good things ahead.
What like led you to start posting on social media, like not just the fun videos, but also those ones focused on confidence through Christ?
I was working in the social media marketing field and just seeing the other side of things. And not that it was necessarily all bad. I mean, there's so much good with it. But at the same time, I was not feeling like I just wanted to bring different kind of hope, a different kind of light into the world. And I've always been passionate about sharing the gospel. It's just something I've always loved to do. So it just made sense to do that as the next thing. Some people get on social media and they do this and they're like growing big, like within a year, 6 months. Girl, Karen, I've been doing this since it's been over 11 years. It's been like a slow process. And I don't even know if I have one necessary message other than the gospel of Jesus Christ and humor. But I don't do this other than any other reason than it just brings me joy. And I think that's at the time, like when I came up to Utah and I had just gotten divorced, that's when I started posting on social media. And that was back when like reels weren't even, I think it wasn't TikTok, it was like Dub Mash. So I was like on the first TikTok, like back in the day when everyone was like lip syncing everything. And so I started like with Dub Mash a little bit, and just because it was funny and it brought me joy. And then working with social media marketing and like seeing this other side. And there was actually an author that was in San Clemente because I lived in California, and he was down there. What was his name? He used to have a blog, and he has this book called Digital Missionary. And that was the first time that I realized, like, oh, wait, because he was talking about when people start searching up different things about whether it's anything related, especially church related, gospel related, the first post that comes up, it's like all these like negative things about the gospel, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then maybe the 20th one down is your post. And back then when blogs were really big. So for me, when I read that, I'm just gonna bug me. I don't know his name. He was like such a huge influence on me. But I was like, wait, I could do this. I want to do this. I want to be one of those people that or persons. I don't know. I don't speak English right all the time, but but I was like, I want to be someone that can bring light into someone's life. And especially when I was going through some dark times, I was like, when you're going through dark times, you want to help other people go through or help them through their dark times, whatever it is. And so that's kind of like what motivated me. And so when I first moved to Utah, it was basic at first, and then I went to LDS Business College, which now is Ensign College, and I had incredible mentors there, like Spencer Taggart. Like he's like a huge powerhouse. He was working for their Ensign College, but now he's at BYU, Hawaii. But he was a huge motivator as far as just sharing goodness and light and bringing that into the world. And even Ensign College was like one of the first ones. They were working with Bonneville Communications, and they were creating like messages of hope and light. So I saw the back end of that. And then interviewing with some directors at the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints production company, because I wanted to go into that field. And they were telling me, you probably have more ability influence if you start your own thing, because the church has to go through all these steps to create a production. And you have to get through so many steps. They're like, you can basically just go for it and post it within an hour. And they were saying short form content is where things are going. And that's where it did go, even though I think they're still doing a great job. And so I think that's what caused me to think, wait, there needs to be a voice of goodness. And as far as confidence, like I'm struggling with this, so probably other people are too. And I think if anybody's out there trying to figure out, I would love to bring light. I'm not very confident though in this particular thing, but I would love to do this. My feeling is God has given you an interest or desire, and he needs us in all the places. It may be on social media, but it may be like being a dental hygienist. I don't know, like it could be so many things. But if there's an interest there, you better believe that Satan's also going to be there trying to discourage you from that thing. Oh, you're not so good, or you would never make it big, or pay attention to what he's saying. Pay attention to those discouraging thoughts. If it has anything to do with you're not good at this or you won't grow as fast, like those are all worldly things. God is like, just bring me one soul. That's all he says. Like, if you're out there as a dental hygienist talking about bringing light into people's life, you can do it in so many ways. You don't have to do it the way that the world says to do it. And so don't listen to those discouraging thoughts. Just go for it.
That. Yeah, it's like sometimes we have these thoughts of, well, what if I fail? What if
Yeah.
I can't do it? I don't, who am I to do it, right?
Mhm.
And what if instead we like flip those and we said,
Mhm.
well, what if I can do it? What if I do succeed? What if I am the right person to do it? What if I can just touch one person and change their life? And when we can flip it around, then it's like suddenly that confidence within us does grow.
Yes.
And it's faith. Our faith grows, and the Lord knows what we can accomplish. And so if we can just put our faith and trust in the Lord and
Yes.
be like, okay, I'm just going to take that next step, right? Just
Yes.
that next step, and just trust that he will guide you in each step forward, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't work out the way you want to. Just keep trusting and keep taking that next step. And it's amazing what you will do. Amazing.
Yeah. And we may not even know entirely what that amazing thing is. And that can be discouraging if we don't know. But in God's eyes, do we need to know? Right? If we're just using the talents he's given us, and I think interest is a talent, like our interests are our talents, can be connected. We're already doing a good job by just following that little thought of like, I'm just gonna see, because that's showing faith. I'm putting more trust in that good thought than I am this doubt that's over here, like you said, saying, well, you're not so good. Like you wouldn't do, who's to say that oh, you're not gonna make much of a difference in the world kind of thing, or I think our own insecurities may stop us from probably accomplishing some of the most important things that we could do. There's even some things right now I'm thinking about, little thoughts that I've been getting to do, and those little thoughts are like, yeah, but you don't even know how to do this, or you don't even know why would, that's silly. But then I was like, you know what, though, who cares? Like if it's an idea, if it's a good thought, there's something there, especially if it's a reoccurring thought that you keep getting. If it's a good reoccurring thought, the negative reoccurring thoughts, they can come, but that's not God.
Good point. Well, one of the things that you said was you've been doing this for 11 years, and I love that you're still doing it, even though it's been a slower growth than other things that you've seen, because there have been a few times where I've been discouraged, but I'll see something that you post and it's what I needed to hear or see or whatever it is, right? And that helps me to be able to have the strength to continue on too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I love that you're like acting on that thought to do something that you feel called to do. And even if someone's like already doing what you want to do, it doesn't matter. Like you're going to still do it differently than they're going to do it. And you don't need to do it, they do it. And if it's imperfect in your mind, again, God doesn't look at things the way the world does. And so he can do so much good with just an open heart, a willing heart. So I like say high five. Good job, girl. Just for fun doing the podcast or whoever's listening, if you're thinking about it, let's do it. Just have confidence that Christ will help you as you push through that.
I'm curious, you're a seminary teacher,
Hmm.
and I want to know what are some of the things, like you mentioned one of them, but what are some of the things that you've learned from the youth about being confident?
Ooh, that's a really good question. There's a few students that I can think of in my head right now who, in my mind, you consider being confident. But what's standing out to me is not necessarily like, oh, you're so confident, you have all these friends, or you're so easy to talk to. They're confident enough to see someone who is not really talkative, who's not participating. And those are the kids that are coming in and they're saying, hey, and they're talking to them. They're getting these particular students to say things I can't get them to talk, but they can get them to talk, or even like helping stay on task. To me, I'm like, that takes a lot of confidence. But again, it's nothing that they're like achieving. It's nothing that they're like, you would say the world to be like, wow, like you are like, you should be so confident because you're so popular. It's like the way that they're able to see people where they're at and then to do something about it. And it literally sometimes is a simple, like even today, there was one girl, there was a particular student that was sitting at her table and she leaned back and she says, hey, and she says this person's name and she says, how's it going? She's like, hey, let's do this together. and to help them like stay on task and just help them to do the assignment. And then I'm thinking of another student yelled across the room, "Hey, come sit over here with us." I'm like, that's what it's about. Like when you can look and see other people. And I find that when I'm not confident, I start looking inward. Like I start, oh, they probably think this about me. They probably think this. And then I've missed probably other people, like in their place of hurting or needing something, like even just a friendly hello. But when I can be like, you know what? I gotta find somebody else. I gotta find somebody else to like to help, say hi to minister. Even as like a teacher, I can get stuck in my own thoughts, like, oh, I'm not a very good teacher. That was a horrible lesson. I can get stuck in those thoughts and then I'm not confident. But when I get outside of those thoughts and instead say and follow these students like what they do and be like, oh my gosh, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? And seeing where people are, oh, I'm noticing like a student over here is not like he just looks sad or she looks sad. I'm gonna go and talk to her for just a second and to see how they're doing. Whether the lesson was a flop or not, to see people where they're at. I admire students that do that and I can see that. And I'm like, that's confidence. They're doing something amazing with the Lord right there.
That is so fascinating. It's like confidence is looking outward to seeing how you can lift others up and strengthen them and give them that support. Yeah. Wow, that is a great lesson. I love that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite scripture on divine work?
Oh, well, okay. So I have like this little tag. Anytime I find a scripture in the scriptures that I love that has to do with confidence, I tag it treasures of confidence. I'm like at 58. 2 years ago, I had over like 150 on there. They all got erased one time at FSY. I don't know what happened. I couldn't recover them and I was like crying. I was like, oh, my confidence versus that's when I first knew that scriptures meant something to me. Like, okay, not the first time, but I was like, oh my gosh. But I just keep a running tab and of scriptures that just bring me confidence. And it's hard for me to say what's my favorite, but just recently, two scriptures that are my favorite. And it's in 35:13-22. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. And it's just talking about where your treasure is. That's where your heart will be also. And I just love when you look at people and you can just see the light of like Christ in them. You can just see that they have like a sparkle in their eye. To me, it's because they're just focusing on Jesus Christ. And naturally, that light comes from their eyes and it's just beautiful. Like that light is beautiful. And as a single woman who is looking for like her future spouse, that is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that light in someone's eyes. And I'm not talking about like oh, you got beautiful eyes. No, it's this light that you notice in people. And you probably have seen that in people, just their light. And to me, that's beautiful. And I want to have that. Even if my body changes, gray hair, because it changes, like our bodies change and that can get discouraging sometimes. But to always remember like the light of Christ, like that is beauty. And you could have that, like that Russell M. Nelson sparkle out in his eyes. I mean, you can see it, right? You can see that sparkle in his eyes. And I love that. I saw it in so many of the apostles' eyes. And I just am like, oh, I want to have that. So that's kind of been my favorite scripture when things aren't exactly like the way I want it to go. Like when you look at yourself and you're thinking, no, it's okay. It's the light of Christ. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
Just keep your eyes focused on the Lord and
Yeah.
that light comes through.
Yeah.
What is one small and simple action that those listening can do to embrace what we've been talking about today?
I think two simple things. Start replacing your negative thoughts with positive ones. It's a simple thing that we can do. Take out those negative thoughts, put Christ in, and then positive thoughts about yourself. And then the second is just looking for people to and seeing where they're at and just loving them and looking for the one, going back to what President Nelson said, looking for the one to smile at, to say hello to love, even if it's just for like 2 seconds. I think that's the two easy things that we can all do, no matter where we're at.
Are there any other thoughts that you would like to share about divine worth and confidence and potential?
Oh, no, I think just that it's a journey. I think there was one scripture that I did see that I remembered before I got on here. Did I take a picture of it? Because I knew I was going to forget where it's at because my memory is not good. Oh, my memory. See, there we go. My memory is not good. I just said something negative. So let's see if we can switch that. I'm working on having better memory, and I'm doing a good job at it by taking pictures of things so I can remember. Oh, just it's 3 Nephi 18:24. Just hold up your light that it may shine into the world. Behold, I am the light which you shall hold up, that which you have seen me do. It's his light that we're holding up, um, and giving glory to him. It really never is about us. It's always about God. And when we can focus on shining his light and bringing the glory to him, the attention to God, then, and what it was always about for Christ, then we'll find the confidence that we need in any situation, any day.
Where can people connect with you?
I think Instagram is where I'm mainly at Once Upon a Sonrisa. I'm on TikTok sometimes if I get over there. I would love to meet anybody, chat with anybody, especially because I think a lot of my posts that I create are from conversations I have with either students or with people, just concerns I hear people have. 98% of the posts I post are from something that has either happened during the day with a student, with a family member, or just something I'm struggling with personally. And then the other two are just like percent is just like, oh, that'd be a fun idea, you know? But I try to make it around something centered around what's happening in my life. So I would love to know what anybody else is like going through or struggling, what they need, because then I feel like it just helps me know just another perspective. But I think also creating a post around that just helps. It could help somebody else. So yeah, connect. I would love to meet you.
Sonrisa, this has been awesome. This has been like so insightful for me. So thank you so much for coming on here. I know that people will hear what you have to say and learn something from you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. We need you and we need all the good work that you are doing. So, so glad that you're doing this podcast. Glory to him, right?
Yep, exactly. It's because of him I'm doing this.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us were like, I want to be doing this without
Yep.
him giving me that thought or anything like that.
Yep, exactly. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Um, that went by so quick.
I know.
So, and even then, I'm like, oh, I could ask her this and I could ask her this. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay. But so yeah, I really do appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, I learned a lot from you. And it was cool hearing like what you've learned from your seminary students too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that was a really good question that you asked. I'm really glad that you actually asked that because I feel like that might be something I actually want to talk about with my students, saying, hey, like, I was asked this question on a podcast and it made me realize that I don't look like when you look at those students, like exactly, you don't see, oh, they're the most popular or they must be like, no, like what I see is confidence. Yeah, so that was like a really cool question that gave an opportunity to think about that and kind of notice, wait a second. Like as a teacher, that's what I notice is those kids that are doing those things. So yeah, that was a great question. Thank you for asking that.
It was inspired. That's from the
Yeah,
Lord.
for sure
Yeah.
inspired.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love working with the youth. I know our time's up, but but I love working with the youth and there's so much that we can learn from them.
Yeah, I agree. And that's so cool that you're doing this.
Yeah, like
The
the
podcast.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, what made you want to do the podcast?
That was the Lord. Like it really was because
Yeah.
it's like I kept having the thought, oh, I should probably do a podcast. I should probably do a podcast. And I'm just like, I don't have time for that. I don't know how to do, all those, all
Hmm.
those things. What if I try launching it and then nothing happens because
Yeah.
I tried launching things before and it has happened. So it really was just like the Lord's like, no, you really need to do this. And then it's like,
Oh,
I kind of went back and forth about which one to kind of focus on. But it was around the time, like the last Seek This Jesus Summit that I believe you were on that one talking about confidence. And it was around
yeah.
the time that I started realizing, no, that really is the focus
Wow.
that I'm taking my life coaching business is being confident in what the Lord has in store for you.
Cool.
And so, and I got a journal out with 52 scriptures that are focused on divine worth and potential. So it's been a little bit of a process. And it was funny, like, okay, the Lord's telling me, okay, it's time to do the next step, which is the podcast. And so,
Oh, yeah.
so I talked to some of my coaching friends about it and realized I'm like giving myself all the excuses, right?
Mhm.
And wrote down all the things that I thought I needed and then realized, yeah, I can do this. So,
Wow. I'm so proud of
yeah.
you. That like seriously is so amazing. And it's scary. Like especially I don't know if this is the case, but even being in California where there's probably not too many LDS podcasters around where you live. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Um, it, yeah, I don't think so. Like I know of one and they just ended their like her and her sister did it and they just ended their podcast. So like that's the only person I can think of who
Yeah.
that I know of.
Well, and I think that's so commendable. Like seriously, like that's awesome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Especially because I think the Lord needs voices everywhere and like in your space. But I mean, your space obviously is going to reach all the spaces because it's a podcast, but even being in your like little vicinity of like your stake, your ward, that reach is direct right there. But then, of course, it branches out to everywhere else. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like it's hard to even just share it. So I served on mission on Temple Square, and we have like this Facebook group with just people who served under this particular mission president. And I felt like you need to post it, like you need to share about it. And I was like, well, I don't want to be like self-promoting in the group.
Right.
And the Lord's like, "Yeah, you need to share it." And so I did that just yesterday, and I'm already getting feedback from it. And so it's
Cool.
just like, wow, that's amazing. Like that's the Lord's
Yeah.
just leading me. I just needed to listen to him step by step, right?
I know. Like we get so like in our head with different things. But it makes me wonder sometimes too why the Lord, how he really does view it all. Because I feel like it's such a journey of having to do these things and it's so scary. And like, I mean, there for a while I was getting discouraged because I was like one of the very first LDS people making videos, but nobody knew about me. Like I was just off in my own little world, like just doing my own little thing. And then it started getting bigger and I was meeting people and they were getting followers like thousands, like by the day. And I'm like, it's taking me like 2 years to get 1,000 followers, like 3 years. But then I was in the mindset of like the world, right? Like you're not growing. You're not like, and so it's kind of funny how like I've had to learn what this is about. Like how the Israelites had to travel in the wilderness for 40 years. Like it should have taken them 11 days. And I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes that gets me, I'm like, it's taking me like 40 years to get where I am. But there was things that they had to figure out and how to learn. There's things that I have to learn. Yeah, it may take me a minute longer. And I don't know that that's, and maybe this is a little bit different than the Israelite story, but I don't know if that's always a problem because the Lord sees things so differently than we do. He's like, it's not about the followers. This is literally about one person. I don't know. That's a conversation I'd like to have with him.
Yeah. Well, and it's like Abinadi. It's he
Oh,
was
yeah.
converted Alma the young, Alma the elder.
Yeah.
And like so much happened from there. And we benefit from his
Yeah.
words too.
Yeah.
You just never know the impact you'll have.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a choir, right? We're all just in the same choir and all of us have like our part and every single part is important because that's what makes it so beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it okay if I like keep this part of the conversation too?
Yeah.
Because that was really good too.
Whatever
So
you
I
what
kind of wrapped it up. I'm like, let's keep this going.
Whatever you want, whatever you want. I'm
All right.
game.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Sounds good. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for letting me just chat. It's fun.
If you have found this podcast to be a light, please share it with others and leave a review, which helps others to be able to find the podcast as well. To learn more about your divine worth and potential, you can check out my Divine Worth Scripture Study Journal with over 52 scriptures relating to your divine worth and potential. You can find that on Amazon by searching Divine Worth Journal by Karen Papin or through the link in the show notes. You are of worth. You have a purpose. The Lord loves you, and He believes in you, and only you can make the impact on this world that you are meant to make. Join me next time as we talk more about divine worth and potential.